Hi, this video is going to talk about and show how to do a pivot table. So a pivot table is a quick way within Excel to take a large amount of data, in this case about 700-800 rows, and summarize it very quickly. The fun thing with pivot tables is if you change your mind how you want it to look, it's pretty easy to just make a quick change and move things around. So let's get started. So here we have bank data. The data shows a date that a new account was opened, the amount of the account, the type, who opened it, what branch, and was it a new or existing customer. So let's go ahead and click on this data. So click anywhere within the data. Excel will know, since it's contiguous or all together, that it all belongs together. So let's go to Insert and Pivot Table. This is where we start a new pivot table. We already have a defined name range for bank data, so that is automatically filled in. We can put the pivot table on this sheet or any other location. I usually like starting with a blank sheet, so usually I select New Worksheet. Click OK. Off to the right, we have our fields, and this is where we're going to do most of our work. If you ever lose this area, it accidentally gets closed. You'll notice that there are two new pivot table toolbars at the top. Go to Analyze and select Field List. Depending on the width of your screen, these buttons may appear just a little bit differently on other computers. Alright, so in this one we want to go ahead and select account type and put that in the row, and I just do that by clicking on it and dragging it down. We're going to take a branch and bring that to column, so we can already see kind of the outline of our pivot table. And we want an amount key or some type of value, so we're going to bring down amount. Alright. Right there's your first pivot table. Now let's make it look a little bit nicer and add some details. The first thing we probably want to do is format the numbers. It's a little hard to read without commas. So I'm going to click on one of the numbers and right click actually. There's two different options. We have format cells. That will only change the format of the single cell that we have selected. Or if we want to change all of them, we're going to select number format. From here, the screen should look fairly familiar, as you've probably used this before. So we want 0 decimals, and we want to put 1,000 separator. We don't have any negative values, so we don't need to worry about that. Click OK, and that alone looks a little bit better. Now, things we can do with pivot tables, if we don't like this, we can change the direction, so we can bring branch down to rows and take account type to columns. That just pivots the table together. Let's go ahead and switch it back. Now let's go to the design toolbar. So once again, this is one of the two new toolbars that we've added. And let's look at grand totals. Let's take grand totals off of column E, so off of the rows, but just make it for columns only. There we go, or we could go ahead and put that back. Put them on for both. I kind of like it for both. So we also have here what we call column labels or row labels. These are what I would call internal filters. So internal to the pivot table, we have ability to filter. So we can filter the columns by selecting only select branches. So let's say we didn't want to look at central, we can only look at 2. Or we can go back and select all. And we can do the same for rows. Let's say we just want to see checking and savings. Now, once you get everything set in the toolbar or in the pivot table, you may want to type over these and change the names. Or you may want to go to the Analyze toolbar, and we're going to take off our field headers. That's what those column labels and row labels are. Field headers, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So we talked about the internal filters. Let's go ahead and add customer to an external filter. So this adds a drop down up here, and let's say we only want to look at new customers. or we can look at just existing customers. This is an easy way for an end user who doesn't know how to create pivot tables to change the data up and look at some other items. All right, let's put it back to both or all. This time let's take open by and drop it down to rows. So now you can see it's breaking down CDs by who opened the account. Now we could swap it around just by changing the order, and now we have new accounts and teller accounts, or accounts opened by teller and broken down. I think I like it better the other way. Now there's a few formatting things we can do. Let's go ahead to design, and under subtotals we're going to move the subtotals to the bottom. I like that a little bit better. And then let's go ahead and add a blank row after each line. There, I believe that helps our readability. So right now we have the sum of the accounts, so we have a total dollar, but we don't know how many. So let's go ahead and just change this to see how many accounts. So I'm moving to the lower right hand corner here where it says sum of amount. Let's click on that drop down and select the last item. It defaulted automatically to sum, but let's go ahead and change it to count. Well, good. Now we can see the number of each account opened up by branch, by type, and who opened it. We may want to add one more type of field. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to drag amount down one more time. Now we have both sum and count, but on the sum I want to see percentages. So I want to go ahead and click on the drop down of the second one, and I want to put it back to count because I want to see the number of accounts versus the sum, but I want it to show up as the percentage of a column total. That means the column will appear and add up to be 100%. There we go. And one more thing. I'm going to say number of accounts, and I'm just going to change the next one to %, and that makes it a little bit more easily understood what is on the pivot table. All right, that's your first pivot table, and actually there's quite a few functions covered in there. Watch for future videos on other types of pivot tables.